In today's lesson, we are going to discuss menstruation, a subject that, at first look, may appear to be strange, but which actually carries a great deal of weight in the teachings of the Bible. In a way that is sometimes disregarded or misinterpreted, the Bible offers comprehension into the manner in which menstruation was understood in ancient times and how it is relevant for contemporary Christians. Now, let's investigate what the Bible has to say about a lady who is experiencing her period. It is necessary for us to return to the Old Testament in order to acquire a comprehensive understanding of this subject matter. In the Old Testament, God created a number of laws and regulations for the Israelites through Jesus Christ. Specific instructions concerning bodily secretions, including menstruation, are outlined in Leviticus chapter 15. According to this, a woman is deemed to be ceremonially unclean beginning with her period and continuing for 7 days after it has ended. Whoever touches her during this time is likewise considered filthy till nightfall. This applies until dusk. However, what exactly does it mean to be unclean in a ceremonial sense? It is essential to have a firm grasp on the fact that this idea does not refer to impurity in a moral sense. More specifically, it refers to the degree of ceremonial cleanliness that is required in order to take part in particular religious rituals or to enter hallowed areas. One was not considered to be a sinner just because they were dirty. Rather, they were compelled to temporarily abstain from participating in communal worship or ceremonial rites. These prohibitions were not enacted with the intention of humiliating or degrading women. Rather, they were enacted with the purpose of highlighting the need of maintaining ritual cleanliness in worship and the requirement for boundaries during times of bodily discharge. It was believed that menstruation was a natural occurrence, yet, in order to preserve the purity of the ritual, it was necessary to temporarily separate the menstrual cycle. In addition to the book of Leviticus, there are additional passages in the Bible that contain various references to menstruation. An example of a metaphorical use of menstruation imagery may be found in the book of Ezekiel. This imagery is used to portray the spiritual unfaithfulness of Israel. The significance of observance of ritual purity and faithfulness in the connection of covenant that exists between God and His people is brought out by this image. Despite the fact that the Old Testament serves as the basis for comprehending menstruation within the framework of the Bible, it is of the utmost importance to take into consideration the ways in which the teachings and activities of Jesus Christ shaped this perspective. Jesus challenged the ancient laws of cleanliness and emphasized the significance of inner purity over the need of engaging in rituals that are external. His interactions with women, particularly those who are facing menstruation troubles, are characterized by compassion and inclusion rather than isolation. According to the Gospels, for example, there is a narrative of a woman who had been bleeding for a period of 12 years. In accordance with Jewish law, her condition would have resulted in her being considered unclean and leading to social exclusion. Nevertheless, she was quickly healed when she stretched out in faith and touched the hem of the garment that Jesus was currently wearing. Jesus praised her faith and restored her to wholeness rather than condemning her for breaking purity regulations. He did this instead of condemning her. One of the most important aspects of the teachings that the Bible has to provide about menstruation is the importance of compassion and love over the strict adherence to purity standards. This interaction with Jesus brings this point home. Jesus' mission placed an emphasis on grace, forgiveness, and the inherent worth of every human, regardless of their physical condition. While the Old Testament offered standards for keeping ritual cleanliness, Jesus used his ministry to emphasize these concepts. Given the circumstances of our current world, how should we, as Christians, interpret the teachings found in the Bible? Although we no longer follow the ceremonial laws of the Old Testament, the concepts of compassion, understanding, and inclusion continue to be at the core of our religious beliefs. Instead than perceiving menstruation as something that should be avoided or considered taboo, we are obligated to approach it with compassion and to offer support. In terms of practical application, this entails the establishment of settings in which women are able to freely and openly discuss their menstrual health without feeling embarrassed or ashamed. It includes opposing cultural norms that perpetuate the stigma associated with menstruation and pushing for access to menstrual hygiene products and healthcare services for all women, regardless of their financial situation. In addition, it is of the utmost importance to acknowledge that menstruation is a natural and normal part of life, and certainly not something that should be shunned or feared. We can foster a culture that is more accepting and supportive of all individuals by rethinking our perspective on menstruation through the lens of compassion and empathy. This will allow us to create an environment in which every person is cherished and respected. As we consider what the Bible has to say about a woman who is experiencing her period, let us not forget the overarching message of love and acceptance that Jesus exemplified throughout his ministry. Let us make it our mission to follow in his footsteps by showing compassion and understanding to people who are going through menstruation, and by working toward a future in which everyone is treated with respect and dignity. Before we come to a close, we would want to express our gratitude to you for accompanying us on this voyage of discovery and investigation.